as we let everybody join us, I'd like to kick off by saying good morning, everybody, and maybe good afternoon to some of you. A super good morning for some of our speakers. So we've got speakers joining us from all around the world, from the United States, from Latin America, from Africa. I know we're all in very different time zones, and a big shout out to you, Dan and Andres, because I know it is 4:30 in the morning for you. So if ever anybody could demonstrate a passion for impact sourcing, then there's got to be people that get up and join a webinar at 4:30 a.m. So big up to you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. So lots of pinging as people enter, so welcome. My name is Kerry Hallard, and I'm the Chief Exec of the Global Sourcing Association here in the United Kingdom, and I'm absolutely delighted to be holding this first UK focused, well, for our UK audience, global focused impact sourcing webinar. So impact sourcing is what I believe needs to be on the top of everybody's ESG agendas right now. So impact sourcing is a massive piece in the social piece of ESG. And I truly believe that our industry, the industry of global technology and business services, is already a very clear global leader in the whole subject and the whole deployment of impact sourcing. But I think right now we have an opportunity to actually make this a huge global movement and to actually bring impact sourcing into the mainstream for businesses of every industry, every kind, all around the world. So I know we're being joined today by the whole sort of sourcing ecosystem that we work with across the GSA. We've been joined by the buyers of technology and business services, the providers of technology and business services, and also the advisors of technology and business services. And I would like to stress that I truly believe that every single one of us has a role to play in impact sourcing. Whether you're a service provider, you should be ensuring that impact sourcing is at the heart of your employment strategies. If you're a buyer, then yes, you should be looking at direct employment in parts of your business, but in the sourcing department, you need to be ensuring that your service providers have impact sourcing at the heart of their employment practices. And then if you're an advisor, absolutely, you should be ensuring that if you're advising on RFPs or you're working on any type of technology and business services agreement, that you are pushing the impact sourcing agenda to both sides. So I'm hugely passionate about this. I really do think that our industry is at the forefront and has a massive role to play. And I do believe that we can, in short term, make massive strides for the UN Sustainable Development Goal of eradicating global poverty. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to our first speaker. We've got 4 speakers, and I'm going to let the speakers go back to back. So please do use the chat if you've got any questions, but I'm not actually going to address those questions until we get to the panel. So we've got speakers first, then we'll go into a panel, and then I will be inviting you to put your digital hands up or take your questions from the chat and make it really interactive. So that's the opener from me. I'd now like to hand over to Jim, or James, but I think we can call you Jim Donovan, who's the founder and chief exec of ADEC. So over to you, please, Jim.
Thank you very much, Kerry, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. First, I apologize. I am on the road, so I hope this is coming across clear. First, we really appreciate the opportunity to present. We believe impact sourcing absolutely has a role within the Sustainable Development Goals and the community at large that is dealing with a very disruptive world that we're living in. To be very frank, we're past the tipping point on so many different fronts, but let me get into that and let me show you why we believe impact sourcing can connect. Environment, social governance, it's such a broad bucket. It covers so many things. And frankly, I'd like to put it into numbers for everybody. Before COVID, there was about a $2.5 trillion shortcoming to make the world more sustainable. Post-COVID, $5 trillion annually.
Jim, you are breaking up, so perhaps we do take your video off at this point.
To the Sustainability Development Goals.
So Jim, do you want to turn video off?
I'm sorry, Carrie, did I lose? Am I not?
Yeah, I'm just suggesting you turn video off, and then we'll probably get the audio clearer. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. I hope everyone was able to hear something, but effectively there's a 4-point Sustainable Development Goals. I'm sorry if this is not coming through clearly. Miss Carrie, is it coming through?
I'm afraid it's not. You're really breaking up for me. Are you breaking up for everybody else?
Miss, right. Yeah, let me hand this off to Miss Mick. Hopefully she has a clearer. I apologize, I'm on the road, but Miss Mick, could you take my position, please? Thank you.
Sure, sir. I'd be discussing a lot about on the SDG and the shortfall and the contributions that the private sector, especially the ones in the industry where you're all part of, can contribute to sustainable development. And then I will pass on the floor to Sir Matt later on to showcase what we're doing in terms of our contribution to sustainable development. So as Jim was mentioning earlier, when we talk about ESG, we have to look at it in the perspective of the business and what it means for us. There was a 2.5 trillion gap in financing sustainable development. That was pre-COVID, but post-COVID, it now brings us a 4.2 trillion deficit in financing the development. And as it is today, almost half of the global population, the 9 billion population, is living below the poverty line of $6.85 per day. And that is something that I think the industry can contribute in upskilling to make sure that the wider labor and talent available are ready and prepared to be integrated to the global workforce. Next slide, Ms. Christina, please. And in ADEC, I think on this portion, this is our impact on what we do over the years, and I think Sir Matt can discuss this slide for us. Over to you, Sir Matt.
Yeah, let me jump in. Sorry about the bit of the disruption as we were going through that, people on the road. So as Jim started out explaining and Michelle's expanded upon, there's a huge amount of work to do in order to cover the gap in terms of helping the world achieve the SDGs, and impact sourcing plays a great part in that, or can play a great part in that, we believe, in terms of the SDGs related to eradicating poverty. Looking at some of the numbers here, according to recent data from Everest, there were 350,000 impact workers worldwide. Now that sounds like a good number. It's a positive start. It's showing that there is already a presence in terms of impact workers within the outsourcing industry. But if we look at the numbers on the left-hand side, which is the total number of FTEs in the global services market, is really just scratching the surface. And in terms of predictions for the outsourcing industry, that has been growing and is expected to continue to grow despite talk of downturn and recession. So we believe there's a lot of opportunity to do more, and that organizations, both in terms of providers and buyers, can drive this much further. There's a bigger opportunity, and you can see some of the numbers there in terms of presence of impact workers in different regions. We've done a lot of work in the Philippines, Kenya in more recent years. which we expect to, which is one of our big focuses, is Africa, and starting to look towards Latin America. But I think we're going to hear more about that from other speakers later on. So if we go to the next slide. There's some of the benefits that we've experienced and that people can achieve. First of all, is the talent advantage. You know, we're all talking about the difficulties in hiring and attracting good talent. Impact sourcing is a great way to overcome that. With our impact workers, we see much less challenge in terms of hiring, and things like attrition rates are much lower. So there's definitely an advantage there. In terms of the business, we are seeing the obviously there's some advantages in terms of the cost of doing business, the lower costs in terms of that you get from the lower turnover, the reliability you get from a stable workforce, and then obviously the third bullet is the S in ESG, the corporate citizenship, the ability to provide a positive impact and contribute to the achievement of SDGs. If we move forward to the next slide, please. So just some very high level stats on ADEC. Not a huge presence in Europe today, which we're trying to change, but just to give you an idea of where we're operating globally, as I mentioned, key areas for us in terms of impact sourcing have been Philippines and Africa. Although, as we'll show in the next slide, we have been turning our attention onshore as well. So if we move to the next slide. So just a couple of personal examples. So one is from Kenya. We have just an example there of one of our employees. We're proud to be able to give opportunities to people where we operate, and that's one of the key tenets really of impact sourcing, is being able to give opportunities to people that wouldn't otherwise have them. We work hard to develop our employees when they join us and give them opportunities to move through the ranks and develop actually a meaningful career with our business that we believe benefits the employee, but also benefits the wider community. Impact sourcing doesn't have to just be about places like Kenya with widespread challenges. It also can be a useful tool and effective closer to home. So in Ireland, we've had an impact sourcing program where we have employed long-term unemployed people. It means we've got access to a slightly different demographic. We've seen a lot of benefits from that. And we think that's something that's important to talk about when we're discussing the impact sourcing movement. Next slide, please. And so finally, I'm going to hand over a slightly different example. I'm going to hand over to Ms. Mick to talk about some of the work that we do with the UN.
Thank you, Sir Matt. So part of the program we're doing for impact sourcing, the usual contracting for outsourcing is usually B2B, and sometimes there are private sectors getting contract from the government. But we find this cooperation unique in a sense that we work with a multi-stakeholder approach. We work with the United Nations Habitat to develop this program of SDG cities. It's Sustainable Development Goals for cities. Earlier, we discussed sustainability and the challenges that goes along with it. And sometimes you have to take that into bits and pieces to be able to manage the different aspects of sustainability effectively and more efficiently. So this project, we are targeting to reach 1,000 cities globally in the next 5 years, together with UN Habitat and Global CO Alliance, which is also our partner. And this would effectively impact 1 billion lives. That is where we see the data would really play a crucial role in managing sustainability aspects, whether it's the greenhouse gas emission for cities, for private companies, or what have you. And also, looking at the supply chain that goes along with management of sustainability, data really plays a crucial role in managing those. And a lot of it cannot be cities doesn't have the capacity to do that. So we partnered with UN Habitat to clean the data, find where the data are, and also transform the data into something meaningful that can be used by the governments for their policy creation related to sustainability, or for businesses on how they can make smarter and smarter decision in terms of their sustainable plans and strategies. So the project impact that we're looking at, the 1 billion lives, this has a multiplier effect because all these work are done through impact sourcing. So we are investing in the capacity of the people we have in the organization for us to do and support the data and analytics team of the United Nations. So these are being done in our African office through impact sourcing. So there is the opportunity of upskilling and reskilling. Right now, when we look at, I was looking at the survey of McKinsey the other day, that it was surveyed that at least 75% of the CEOs interviewed identified that there is a shortfall in terms of getting the talents they actually required. But if we look at the International Labor Organization data, there is still a lot of unemployment record happening, about 232 million global unemployment rate. So there's a huge disconnect on the talents needed and also the talents that are available. So we feel that the upskilling and reskilling of the people, just like what we're doing here in this project with UN Habitat, is an important mechanism on how we can at least address the shortfall of talent and bridge the gap between the demand and the supply. So thank you. I think that's it for this case study. Sir Matt, over to you.
Thank you very much. Hopefully we managed to get the message across despite technical challenges. Thanks, Craig.
Yeah, you did. And thank you very much for bringing to light that actually impact sourcing can happen anywhere around the world. So we've just put into the chat the definition for impact sourcing that we created across the Global Technology and Business Services Council. So for those of you that are not familiar with that particular council, it is an alliance of the leading bodies and industry associations around the world that are focused on global technologies and business services, whether it's the buying or the delivery. And together we worked up this definition, which really focuses on the fact that impact sourcing is really looking at giving long-term, meaningful livelihoods to any type of disadvantaged individuals, so in any pocket of the world. So whether it's because they live below the poverty line, or whether it's because they're long-term unemployed, or whether it's because they maybe have a criminal record, all of these individuals fall under, you know, the subject of impact sourcing. So without further ado, I'd like to pass to our next speaker. He is a legend in the industry, as well as a legend in impact sourcing. So Dan Lang is one of the co-founders of Sutherland. He's basically a founding father of BPO, I think, let alone a really strong driving force in all subjects impact sourcing. So Dan, I'm going to pass over to you at 4:49 a.m. for you. So thank you.
I wish my 91-year-old father could hear that, because he has no clue what I do. I'm just a regular guy who lives up on the north coast of America, closer to Toronto than I am to New York City. But I wanted to speak this morning in preparation for this meeting. I thought about the topic in the audience, and really important, I think, to highlight the ability of social sourcing, impact sourcing, to actually have a lasting effect on entire nations. And at the same time, regardless of the scale of the buyer-provider relationship, whether it's a large-scale operation or a small-scale operation, there are principles that can be applied to daily operations. So by way of background, we've been in this business, global technology business services, for about 30 years. Kind of a typical story. We had a dozen operations in APAC. We had our Eastern European location. We had one of the only guys that had something in the Middle East at the time. Of course, South America and North America, US, Canada, and Mexico. You know, up to about 2010, you know, I'm very loose on my years here. Companies like ours, you know, had a formula, you know, show up, hire the best, pay moderately higher wage than the prevailing wage, and get all the best talent in these markets. Go back to your customer, you know, provide an incredible value with highly educated people at about half the cost of what you were going to pay in I wouldn't even say Europe. Let's talk big cities. Half of what you're going to pay in Silicon Valley or in London or in Madrid or someplace, right? That was sort of the name of the game, and a lot of companies went pretty far on that. That business model still working very well today, purely by chance. Myself, a couple others get invited to what seems to be one of the founding events in Italy with University of Michigan and Microsoft and Digital Jobs Africa, Ancestry.com, Teleperformance, Accenture, a whole bunch of pure play impact sourcing companies in very interesting locations, right? We had folks from Kenya, Nigeria, a groovy company in Nepal that was doing something. We're looking at this and saying, wow, this is really incredible. Following the classic impact sourcing definition. One problem, you know, we're in high opportunity labor markets, but the formula, which most of us were following, was, you know, hire the best, pay a little more, and, you know, everybody wins. So we have all these principles kicking around in our head. We take an actual site visit to South Africa. We say, we got to see this in practice, right? And we stumble upon an amazing operation where we're seeing, you know, folks going to college, they're working on technology work, they're getting a free degree, first free university in South Africa. We go back and say, you know, this is really great stuff. What are we going to be able to do with it? We're, you know, we're not a grant-funded company. We're not a small market. We're in multiple places. Mind you, at this time, my company has 30,000 people, 100 clients, and we're doing just fine. I thought a good example to talk about impact sourcing principles and practice would be to talk about Jamaica. I see a lot of folks from the UK on the audience, and I think this might be fairly relevant. So around the same time, 2012, 2013, we've got the government of Jamaica saying, hey, come to Jamaica. This is a great place to do business, right? And we're like, we're everywhere. Nothing special about this. But we get a little excited about it. And we put, I think that the initial starting number was 73 people. Put 73 people on a college campus. There was a company, you got folks may remember Garmin. I think they're still around, but they made GPS units. Garmin had like 200 really, really smart kids at University of West Indies doing something for Garmin that required a lot of technical talent. They finished their project. They go about their merry way. They have a building sitting there. So we say, all right, let's put some people in here and let's see where this thing goes. Our single largest customer is in there and says, this is great. I want more people. What's not to like? We've got people in their junior, senior year of college, graduating from basically, the Harvard of Jamaica. One problem: inside of a year, our demand grows to 500 people. Right? This is not a huge college, right? 500 people was a fairly big number, and our customers say, "Hey, we want more. We want more of this." Right? We had to shift gears and really, say, what are we going to do? There, do we go find another college? How do we scale this? So we go back to all the principles we pick up from impact sourcing. We change the model. We go right to there was a couple players on the island, Xerox up in Montego Bay, a few collections agents up there. Montego Bay, if you know, nice place to visit, tourism, all this kind of thing. Kingston, the city of Kingston, this is only 2012. 2010, extremely violent, government issues with drug dealers, the whole 9 yards, everything that you, could think about. People say you're nuts to go to Kingston and set up off campus. We move up onto the high street in between Royal Bank of Scotland and a Porsche dealer. And we take over a building, and we bring the whole model to the general public. All right. And I'm going to fast forward to today. Today, we're running 5 locations. We've even taken over the government post office in Kingston. We are not alone. We've got over 8,000 folks. At the same time, you can't go 4 blocks in any direction without seeing a major competitor's sign right in the same town. Collectively, we all employ over 50,000 people. The big difference, we started off with this model of earn where you learn, right? We're paying soon to be graduates that could go toe to toe with graduates from, Santa Barbara, San Diego, London, wherever. We flipped the model, and today it's really turned into a learn where you earn. Our employee base, which is not much different than anyone else in the market, is made up of 18 to 24-year-old people, with only a high school education. Some haven't even finished their high school because they had the need to work. 70% bright young ladies, 30% males, and 10 to 15% of our employees have 1 or more children at home. This is not unique to my company. This is basically the island. And in a population of 3 million people and the working adult population of about 1.2 million people, United Nations Global Compact, IAOP, we think, we've never done any official research, but we think this might be the most densely populated impact sourcing story on the planet. Now, what's happening at the same time? Wages are rising. Benefits are getting very, very creative. And this is how companies are competing. a middle class has been created. I took a trip there after pandemic around the 1st of January. I'm looking in parking lots. I see the Lexus. I see the Mercedes. I see the Volvo. These are not cars that folks in Jamaica were purchasing. Everyone pretty much on the island now has solid healthcare plan. For folks that are, from Europe, United States, we don't really understand a country without a safety net in the healthcare thing. So I think everyone collectively, that's hygiene, that's table stakes now. We are seeing wage parity with United States cities like my own. We probably about the same cost of labor as the high end of Jamaica right now, right? We're seeing wage parity, and the whole thing sort of rests on the ability to take these principles and apply them at scale. And very important point, and I spoke with somebody at from the World Bank a while back, and they said, this impact sourcing thing's pretty neat, but I hope it's not just another job creation initiative. And I think where we're all going is really focusing on what happens after you hire a person. How long are they going to stay with you? What skills will they have when they move on? So I see the shift from 2023 to 2030 really being about developing these markets. It's no secret the labor pyramid is not a pyramid anymore. It's barely a column. The number of young people, number of 20-year-old people in the United States and UK right now is 10 million less than the number of 40-year-old people. So particularly for UK companies and US companies, I believe the market is coming that way. Everyone will be doing some form of social impact sourcing. Companies like ours are now working on the E side of the equation, right? Looking at fully self-sustainable buildings in some of these markets. Story's not unique just to Jamaica. We could tell a similar story in Egypt, another story in Colombia, and I think I've probably used up my time, so I'm going to yield the mic back, but thank you so much for having me this morning.
Thank you, Dan. And honestly, I could listen to you talk your stories for hours, and hopefully we'll get a chance for you to impart a few more tales and examples when we move on to the panel. But phenomenal to see how our industry has moved a country like Jamaica from poverty to being, as you said, almost middle class, or actually middle class. So fantastic example. So right, you mentioned Colombia. We're now going to move over to Colombia. So absolutely delighted to invite Andres Barrios from Teleperformance to give the TP Teleperformance story as well. Thank you, Andres. And I know it's very early in the morning for you. Thank you so much for joining.
Hi, Carrie. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, it's a little bit early, but it isn't that early to discuss such an important topics like impact sourcing, in essence. What to say about this? You just said that we can spend hours and hours talking about the different paths and the different avenues we can actually go and try to discover around impact sourcing and how big of an impact it is in society. Let's say in Teleperformance, the picture today is we're on the north of 410,000 people with presence and delivering services from 91 countries and to 170 countries, which is a huge responsibility, talking about people and talking about numbers, and how we can actually directly impact the communities we work in. But this is not new, as Dan was mentioning just a few minutes ago. This has been a driving force for many years within the company, and Teleperformance actually jumped in the opportunity to really embrace impact sourcing across all geos, all continents, but more importantly, to make it a part of its values and part of the understanding for everyone to be part of this big force. How did we get to this point? First of all, we promote a culture of acceptance and respect from within the company, and where we place empathy at the core of our actions. And that is very important, because the cultural endeavor is key here. What we do with our people, what we do with the outside people who are looking at us, is very important to understand that impact sourcing is not some couple of words that came together and kind of fashionable, but also is a necessity, and it is something that is at the heart and at the core of the company, that we all experience it and we all live it together. And it is not by chance that the United Nations have it included in many of its sustainable development goals as part of each of many of them. The most important two that I would draw is promote decent work and economic growth, and reducing inequalities, which is in essence what we are trying to do with impact sourcing in the end. How we do it in Colombia, we actually put it around three main actions here. First of all is full commitment from our C-suite. If we actually get the message down to our people, to the person who just get into the company a minute ago, but from the top down, from our CEO, is just the big beginning for this. If the whole organization is fully committed and fully convinced that this is the first step forward, this is a big win for our organization, and in case of some other organizations that want to implement impact sourcing, is the entrance into this world. The second, by doing this, by working in impact sourcing, we actually make this as a force within the company. It's not just talent. It's not just the right person to do on a specific task, but it's also a force. It is something that we all share and join in because it is the right thing to do. It makes us bigger and greater just by kind of sharing the values and sharing all the benefits that impact sourcing brings to the table. But also the spirit of impact sourcing is embedded into the culture after all those many years in which we've done it and we've promoted throughout everyone. So it means that in the end, the position or the impact sourcing within the company is only growing, and the acceptance for that is bigger than ever. Actually, our clients recognize the value and the force that it brings to the table. We do have much more to offer, but also the beneficial cycle around it is only growing with time. in the specific case for Colombia, we are going to concentrate in only 2 cases today. It doesn't mean that we only have 2 cases to show for, but these are the important ones today. As we all know, the big migration movements in the world have come from today from the Ukraine, of course, but for many, many years, it's come from Venezuela. And Venezuela has meant for Colombia a migration for over 2.5 million people that came into the country with very little opportunities. And of course, with many challenges at the economical level, at health and security fields that also put the government to face, the government and the private sector to face a challenge never seen before. With those, just for you to compare, 2.5 million people in Colombia is around 5% of the population. And many of them were refugees, not only migrants, but also refugees, which also put that into a different level, a more challenging level. So we began working with an NGO by the name of TAND since 2018. They are well known around the world for their work on migrants and refugees. And we put that on the agenda of many other companies in the country. It wasn't only us, it was a commitment for many companies in the private sector to do the right thing. But there is something that has to be done right. It's not only hiring people that is coming from that vulnerable position, but it's also giving them the opportunities to grow within the company, to have a career path, a real career path with opportunities and the chance to grow within the organization. And I am proud to say that today in Teleperformance Colombia, we do have many people at the entry level of the company, but many others that are in leadership positions. Why? Because they also provided us with the right talent. They provided us with the opportunities to look at things in a different way than the one we were used to do it. So it has given us a different set of skills and qualities to provide better conditions and greater things to our customers, our clients and their customers. And that takes me to the second group or second population in which are really focusing right now. Yes, Carrie?
Just a couple of minutes left, Andres.
Yes.
Thank you.
Which is the youngest, the people who just turned 18 in Colombia. And just to give you a number, 58% of of the people who are able to be working, only 58% of that is part of the informal side of the business. They don't qualify to have a pension as soon as they finish their age to retire. So this is a huge problem. So what we do in that sense? We created in Colombia over 6,000 works during 2022 for those people who just turned 18. That's the first job they ever had in their lives. So this is a huge opportunity for people who don't have the chance to go into university or to college, but they can create from scratch by having that chance a new set of opportunities for their families and their own. They can get into the university and have new chances and become an important part of the productive side of the equation. But I want to highlight, Carrie, if you allow me the last minute, I want to highlight the benefits of this, because this is what we are sitting here for. Impact sourcing promotes responsible supply chains. And this is huge for us. It is not only that we do our things, but we also help each other. And we understand the value chain and how we actually do business with people who also promote the same values and have and share the same vision. Also, social equality and diverse workforce. Very important. As I told you, it brings additional talent and additional qualities. Also, and most importantly, promotes lives transformation, career path for all, and new opportunities for communities who need that the most. And that's for me, Carrie. Sorry for the extra seconds. Thank you for the opportunity.
That was great. And in the conversation with you before, Andres, it's really, really good to hear that people in Colombia actually aspire to have a career in our sector now, more so than many other sectors. So it's definitely not an accidental profession for you in Colombia, is it? Like it has been in the UK and in the US. So fantastic. And we will come on a little bit more in the panel to discuss how you bring clients on the journey, what the challenges are. But right now we're going to go over to our last speaker, who gives me a challenge. I know they refer to you as OTM on social media, but I think that's a bit of a cop-out for me. So, so Otis, I'd love you to come on board and share your story from perspective really of, although you're part of a big American group, you African group, you're effectively the new kid on the block in BPO, and you're putting impact sourcing at the heart of your development journey. So over to you, Otis.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the colleagues across the globe. And I just want to acknowledge my previous fellow speakers for sharing very inspiring and quite challenging examples of what impact sourcing can do, for countries, for people, for their careers, and even livelihoods. So thanks so much. Allow me to jump into my slides. If we could move on to the next slide, please. Thanks, Abby. Okay, that's the younger version of me. Thanks very much. We can go on to the next slide. Thank you. So right, just to give some bit of context in terms of who OmniContact is and where we are coming from. So OmniContact is part and parcel of the Econet Wireless Global Group. This is a technology, a telecoms, and a media conglomerate, founded in Zimbabwe in 1998. The group has been in existence for the last 23 plus years. Our group chairman and founder is Dr. Strive Masiyiwa, who also happens to sit on quite a number of global boards. I think of note and relevant for this conversation is the Rockefeller Foundation, where he's been serving for quite some time now. As a group, we are operating out of 31 countries with presence in Africa, the Middle East, Latin America, and Asia. And we are serving customers in 94 countries. So this is just to help us, set the scene in terms of where OmniContact, fits into this group. So within this group, we've got 13 businesses, and of the 13, OmniContact is the one that is basically focused around the business process outsourcing, and is also looking to start to grow her wings in terms of impact sourcing. Across the group, we do have quite some interesting and inspiring examples, which I'll briefly share, but my focus shall be largely on what we are doing within the BPO space. Thank you so much, Abby. If we can go on to the next slide, thanks. So you will see, that lovely couple, before you. That is our group chairman and founder, Dr. Strive Masiwa, and his wife, Mrs. Tsitsima Siwa. Now, when the business was just about to start, they started a foundation that is called Higher Life Foundation. This foundation is basically sitting across our entire group of companies and is at the forefront in terms of championing and driving our social impact investments, in terms of building thriving individuals within the various communities that we operate in. And this is where, from a group perspective, our DNA for impact sourcing is originating from. And you'll notice that we've got a number of areas where Higher Life Foundation has driven and championed a lot of impact investments, in terms of education, leadership development, healthcare and sanitation, job creation, and rural transformation. So when you look at our, group-wide focus, you'll find that whatever we are doing comes and, perfectly fits under this Higher Life Foundation, which is driving our group agenda in terms of impact sourcing. And one of the key things that we have and we hold at the core of our hearts is that, given the right opportunities, people have unlimited potential and ability and capability to transform their communities and ultimately their nations. I mean, we've heard the great stories happening in Jamaica, in Colombia. All those are indications that, it's a commonly held kind of deep-seated desire in any human being to make impact and to make a difference. In terms of what the focus of our programs are, 80% of those are really in the field. And to date, we've seen through this foundation, 250,000 scholarships have been given to various participants, right from primary school through to university. We have a number of our, bright students that have, managed to be within some of the Ivy League universities in the world today. We've got some people that have attended universities like Yale University, Oxford. Some have been to Morehouse, because they were given an opportunity, and we've actually seen that, their best and their potential has actually been, brought out, into being. And you will see that through this program, again, we run mentorship program. To date, again, 68,000 youths are being mentored at different stages of their career development, and as a feeder into some of our businesses as interns, and then they grow up through the hierarchy to leadership positions, management positions. And of course, we don't leave out the fact that issues of equity are quite critical. So the programs are structured in such a way that 50% will be working towards gender parity across the different programs that run. So that's it in terms of the group context. Allow me to move to the next stage of this presentation, where we can now try and really bring it closer home. So that's at a glance who OmniContact is. I think on this particular slide, what I would like to kind of draw your attention to is at the moment, as OmniContact now, outside of the group, we strip out OmniContact. We are sitting at 100 impact source workers that makes about 25% of our contribution to the workforce. And what we are looking to accomplish is to grow this number to 5,000 impact source workers by 2030. It is quite a huge goal in terms of the BPO context. what we are doing, but I do draw a lot of inspiration and encouragement from what we have seen the likes of Dan and the team at Sunderland are doing, and what also Andres and the Teleflex team are doing. So let me then, the next page.
Oh, somebody's not on mute. Please can you mute? That's better. Sorry, Otis.
That's fine, thanks. Abby, you can proceed. Thank you. Great. Now, in terms of what we do, we have a holistic employee wellness program that is basically looking at the total person, and this is basically to enhance the human experience of our agents. So we endeavor to roll out a number of programs that speak to their emotional well-being, speak to their financial well-being, their social well-being, and financial well-being. That being a critical point in the sense that when somebody is well all round, it means that at the end of the day they are able to contribute in a very productive way in terms of how they conduct their work. So you will see that those are some of our team members where we're having time to go out and loosen ourselves and just get to be recharged and energized. Now, if you could move on to the next slide, please. Thank you, Abby. Right. So I've got a couple of stories in terms of where we've seen the impact of some of these initiatives within our workforce. The gentleman you see there, his name is Willard, and he is one of the beneficiaries that came through that Higher Life Foundation scholarship program. He had basically been unable to complete his university education, and he got an opportunity to go through their scholarship program, and he came out quite well, excelled in his academics, became part and parcel of the Econet group. One of the key things that he did after having been given that scholarship is that he opted to volunteer for a year and was later employed within our call center, and he has since risen through the ranks and is now part and parcel of our sales and distribution network. We've seen him go through the ranks as one of the products of this great initiative. I also go into the next example, which is the next slide. Again, it's one of our ladies. Again, within the group, she became part and parcel of our group in 2016, and the remarkable testimony from her side is that when we spoke about how she's been impacted, she started off as one of those agents that we had in the streets selling our products and services. And I asked her, but you are degreed and you didn't want to leave this group. Why? She said that one of the key things was that the passion and the mission of the group resonates so much with her that she decided to stay. And from there, she's managed to secure an employment, and she's already part and parcel of our team at present moment. And the last example I have is another gentleman whom we have as one of the team members that we have, who is living with physical disability. And in his own story, one of the key things that he mentions is that Omni Contract has actually created that kind of an environment which has made him to be given that level of exposure to some new things that he didn't have before. And the fact that when he's within the team, he's never made to feel like he's a stranger or there's something out of line with him, but he's treated like any other person within the team. So those three examples just give a perspective or context to what we have seen as part of the impact of this great initiative. And as we look at accelerating this program across our BPO business, one of the key things that we have is, to put together a model. If we can go to the next slide, thanks. We've put together a model around how we can develop or drive, what we're calling OmniContact impact sourcing as a service, which basically is a program that we are looking to get into partnership with willing and like-minded organizations, where we can, collaborate together through either a white labeling process or through, them, being providers of the opportunities that would be providing job learning experiences for the teams that we have, that would also provide, earning from this particular program. I must also acknowledge at this stage the earlier, in terms of what Dan shared around the earn while you learn, and I believe that as we reproduce, as we look at expanding and developing this program, it will be able to also have similar impact. Just to give context, I did say that we are looking to get 5,000 workers by 2025 in terms of just the impact sourcing side of things. We are also looking to run quarterly cohorts. Under each cohort, we're expecting to bring in at least 500 learners who will go through this program in 1 year, and they get absorbed in the process once they are through with their learnership. The minimum size of each cohort can be 20 per partner, and maximum up to 100. When you look at the right-hand side of this infographic, you will see who the key players will be. So we're looking for global partners. We also have students who are coming through our High Life Foundation, as I explained earlier on. We do have as well graduates that have not.
We've lost Otis mid-sentence there. Oh, no. You're back, Otis. Yeah, we can hear. Well, we can see you again now.
So they're basically part and parcel of this program in terms of the students that feed into this program. So at an annual level, you're looking at 50,000 plus learners or graduates that are available to be part and parcel of this particular program. So at this stage, we are obviously reaching out and getting those that may be interested to partner with OmniContact. We already have some top universities within the country that have agreed to collaborate with us on this particular program. They've also provided infrastructure and facilities that can help us to drive this particular program. And we expect that the first cohort in terms of this accelerated program will kick off from June, the end of June, thereabout. So let me at this stage say thank you, Kerry, and the team for your time and for giving us this platform. I hand back over to you. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Otis. And they're staggering numbers. So the art of the possible is really, really huge. So at this point, yeah, I'd like to invite the speakers to rejoin. Only the speakers to have their cameras on, please. And we'll go into a little bit of discussion about the practical sides of how do you do it, how do you bring customers on board, and where do we go in the future with this to make it a real, true global movement. So if anyone's got any questions, please raise your digital hands or put the questions in the chat. But I'm going to kind of kickstart this with a question about what are the biggest challenges for a service provider in setting up an impact sourcing program. So Dan, you've been in this the longest. You've probably seen it from the very beginning, and I imagine the challenges were different then than what they are today. But what are the challenges right now for setting up an impact sourcing program?
Oh, first and foremost, bulletproof data security. I think that is the new 70–80% of the challenges. It's no longer communications technologies and things like that, but buying market expects zero fraud and absolute data privacy, way beyond what we would consider standard. So I think that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, anybody who'd like to build on that? Andres, what do you see? You're on mute, Andres.
Thanks. I fully agree on that. Privacy is a key factor on this, but also is what has helped us a lot is to create a network around impact sourcing. Not only those people to be on their own, being part of a company, but also to give them their place and to let people know that we embrace that concept, but also a network in which they are recognized, in which they are valued by everything they put on the table and they bring to the company, and let them be mentors, let them be mentees, let them be part of every single piece of our program of the company, because in essence, that is what we are striving for. We are trying to make them part of this whole concept. So open doors in every single concept and being part of a huge community. No walls in between, nothing else. And of course, being really respectful of their own beliefs and tense,
Okay, great. So over to you, Matt. What barriers have you received from customers in the adoption of impact sourcing?
Yeah, so I'll answer that question in kind of echoing what Dan and Andres said. I think that when we're looking at impact sourcing, what we're doing is applying all the lessons that we've learned. It's over the decades through offshoring and outsourcing. So the security concerns, the cultural challenges that we have to be mindful of, and supporting the staff and giving them opportunities to develop. These are always things that we have had to tackle and find solutions for. I think with impact sourcing, it's an opportunity to really utilize all those lessons and apply them all. And it just kind of emphasizes the need for all of that. In terms of barriers, obviously it's another step. It's getting closer to the edge of the envelope, if you like, for certain organizations that might not have thought about going some of the locations or actually having sort of purposeful sourcing at the heart of what they're doing. We have tended to bring existing customers on that journey, so you've already got that trust built into the relationship. But obviously we also have to have ISO 27000 certification, HIPAA compliance, all those normal things, coming back to Dan's point about security, to make everybody comfortable that they can trust the environment. So it is more challenging, but there's ways to develop that trust.
I'd add to that point, Gary, that if I fast forward, we're in 2023 now. By 2030, we believe there will be a fairly standard global service provider network, which we don't see today. It's all individual companies. And I think that puts a unfair advantage on scale players. Many of the customers in our portfolio would love to do business with pure play impact sourcing providers all over the globe, but these companies have a little bit of a difficulty contracting with very large organizations, right? So I think once you have common data security, some standard operating procedures, the advent of the service provider network is going to explode. You know, you can have 100 people sitting in New Guinea and 100 people sitting, 1,000 people sitting in New Jersey. Right? If everybody's using common technology, common standards, and they're able to contract.
Absolutely, that's a great vision, absolutely great vision. So Otis, you want to be part of that vision. What challenges are you experiencing from perhaps partnering in with some of the bigger service providers at the moment?
Thanks, Kerry. I just wanted to add to to the previous question, and then I can respond to this particular one. I think one of the key things that I've seen is that when you're looking and dealing with people from diverse backgrounds, one of the key things is that you need to find a way to be able to provide that right framework of support for the people involved to be optimally productive. And if you recall, in my earlier slides, I mentioned that whole total person kind of holistic model. People will come, into the workplace with different social pressures, issues, challenges that they're having to deal with. Some are still young parents, others have got, financial pressures, debt issues, and so on. So you need to be able to provide a supportive kind of, framework, which enables the people still to be able to thrive at the end of the day and still be able to, contribute meaningfully when it comes to what they expected to do at the end of the day. And then to your question, I think the key thing is really around the exposure that the team is expected or is required to have. Obviously when you engage with bigger players, they are also expecting to get people that have also been seasoned and well, given that opportunity to support or to work in other environments, so that at the end of the day, the learning curve is reduced, and also the productivity, you basically get that up and running within a short while. So part of what we do in this context is that within our group, because we are quite a big group, we therefore offer, some of our teams the opportunity to be seconded to some of our other businesses as a way to kind of give them that right level of exposure that gives them a different experience altogether. So we've got a bank, for example, within the group. We've got a technology company that rolls out fiber, that sells, products and services, overlay services, etc. So that then tends to kind of give somebody a well-rounded view of our operations as a group. By the time we also get to engage with some of our international partners, these guys have, been given the good foundation that they can then build up on as they go forward. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of practical steps, say we've got an advisor on this webinar or, an enterprise buyer that really wants to bring impact sourcing into their delivery ecosystem. What advice would you give, or what are the practical steps that you think that they should take to actually start impact sourcing being part of their delivery system? So again, I'm going to go to you first, Dan, if I can.
Sorry, I was muted. That's a really good question, and I don't have a really great answer for it. Maybe I can answer a little different way. I see at least 70% of the people that are on the buying side of this phenomenon have a CSO now involved. So I think the monkey's out of the barrel, so to speak, or the jack's out of the box, whatever you want to use. And I think it's almost being demanded today. I believe that impact sourcing it cannot be your lead card that you're playing. It's still a market that's based on domain expertise in something and availability of talent with some experience. I think the days of throwing people at problems and raw talent have passed us. So I guess you have to declare major. You know, we're going to be in this market. We're focused on GSB. We're focused on CXM domain. I think those are more dominant than, you know, hey, I'm an impact sourcer and here's my community I serve. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I still think it's a capabilities and performance first market.
Okay, right, let's rephrase that and see if there's a different answer to it. And that is, so I'm an enterprise buyer and I really want to make sure there's impact sourcing in my ecosystem, my delivery system. Do I go to you, Sutherland, Teleperformance, ADEC, and do I say, right, let's co-build, let's partner and co-build an impact sourcing program, or does it not work that way? And you've got one ready-made that you're trying to sell to me as a buyer. What's the best practice?
I think it becomes part of, and this is definitely emerging or emerged amongst sophisticated and established buyers already, part of a general responsible sourcing or a purposeful supply chain program where the outcomes and the objectives are sort of clearly understood. You know, the purpose and what's trying to be achieved through their procurement strategies. There's a really interesting article about Unilever actually and their Partner with Purpose that was you guys published a few weeks ago. I think gives a good example of that. And I think through that, what I expect we'll see is exactly what Dan was talking about. You know, it's about competency, expertise, being able to demonstrate high levels of capability. But part of that capability, along with being able to deliver a great service, being able to secure data, is also going to be about walking the walk and being able to demonstrate that you're actually helping organizations with their ESG strategies and their procurement with purpose design outcomes. If that helps, does that answer the question?
I'll add another point that as you were talking, Matthew, hit me in the head. Strength, sustainability, and fairness are absolutely criteria now on buying side, at least in the selection process. When I say strength, the commitment of your leadership team and your operations to both social and environmental sustainability, fairness, ethical wages, advancement of people. Those are absolutely part of the selection process. And we are now beginning to see contract language, actual addendums to existing service agreements with both performance incentives on these elements and penalties, right? In a very financial sense. 3 strike rules. If you said you're going to do something and you don't, all these kind of things are coming into the contract process. But today, I believe it's all about, it's in the selection process, whether we're going to even consider doing business with you. And we're starting to see it in the contract process. 2 years ago, I used to tell Everest, I don't have a single contract where it's written in the power of the pen, impact sourcing, or even environmental, carbon disclosure. Now it's popping up. The topic comes up daily in my office. I think that's why I still have a job.
Excellent. I'm sure that's not the only reason, Dan, but Andres, any build on that?
Absolutely. I believe it is not only the company that is making the decision to be all into impact sourcing and the whole ESG mega chapter, but also companies are being asked to include by clients. They are being asked for to be included by the responsible supply chains I was talking about, and we all agree on that. But most importantly, our workers are asking for that, are being part of that. The youngest are born with a different chip, if you allow me to say that, and they believe that impact sourcing, inclusion, environmental policies, everything is making a part of the bigger picture, not only of a business side, not only of an income opportunity, but a different future for them personally, individually, and their communities. So I believe the pressure, as Dan mentioned, is going to be felt, and within just a small number of years, we are going to see this is going to be the daily thing.
Yeah, absolutely,
Hygiene.
absolutely. So with that, there also comes great opportunity and huge excitement for the industry, but I think there also comes risk. So it's been a lot of chat in the media about greenwashing. Lots of organisations making out that they're being much more environmentally friendly than perhaps they really are. So is there risk of social washing or impact sourcing washing happening in our industry? And how do we actually help organisations to identify social washing and eradicate it, really? So Dan, I know that you're part of the global think tank that we're both part of to start driving impact sourcing forward. What's your
I think it's absolutely a thing. If I can digress, you see a lot of this in the former topic of CSR, right? There's almost a running joke. If you're doing blood drives and planting trees, you know, it's probably not enough. I mean, they're great things, don't get me wrong. But, you know, you can't go on, you know, any major corporation's website today and not see, you know, somebody trying to, demonstrate in their websites or on their social media virtuous behaviors. So I think that thin veil is could qualify as social washing or greenwashing. I believe that the potential to, you know, overplay your cards is there for sure. But at the same time, the rise of third-party verification organizations is and audits are a really big thing. And I'm not really just talking about ISO and some of the standards, but you know, EcoVadis is considered to be a standard or a third party that's looking at things. So I think you got kind of two things going on. You have people that are, you know, trying to do good things and they may just not understand, is this real impact or is this just, you know, a show pony? And at the same time, you've got organizations that are asking you to disclose, right? United Nations Global Compact. You got to get your CEO to sign something, right? These kind of things are absolutely rising. So yeah, the potential exists there. There's always that marketing, that marketing angle. But I think the disclosures are coming up just as rapidly. You know, say what you do and do what you say and show us is absolutely the culture.
Excellent. Anybody got a build on that?
Sure. Thanks, Kerry. Let me just add on quickly, to the previous conversation, and then just also weigh in on that part. So I think in terms of what next, or what are the next steps, you can look at it from three perspectives. I think the first one is you can choose to build. We've seen how, for example, Dan and the team at Sutherland, they've built their model over a period of time. So that is one option that's available to the buyers. You actually start to build in the networks, the partnerships, and so on, to be able to run that on your own. The second aspect of it is you can buy, from somebody that has, for lack of a better word, an out-of-the-box kind of solution. Because there are definitely, players out there that have invested over time in terms of building viable and sustainable models, which have been proven over time. So that can also be, another avenue. The third option, which I think is really a mix of the two, is you can co-create. And this is where I believe, as OmniContact, we stand in terms of, the approach to say we can look at this, jointly, and each of our different organizations, is bringing something to the table. That way, you are able to accelerate. You are able to achieve scale, in a much faster way. And when you really think about it, it makes, I guess, good business sense for you to get involved, as an organization, as we continue to see, the inequalities that are around the world today. So for me, and based on some of the examples that we have seen, is that in most cases, especially people from marginalized backgrounds, they tend to do quite well, because when they're given an opportunity and a platform, they're there to demonstrate that they've got something to offer. They've got something that they can, bring on the table. So that would be quite critical. And to the point around social washing, it is, a risk that is there, that, this phenomenon, or this kind of practice can be misconstrued and, misused. But one of the things that I've noticed, especially when I look at it from our listed businesses, there are some specific reporting standards that you need to maintain or to meet, where there's an independent validation or auditing in terms of, your product, your practice, for example, around your ESG kind of metrics, and that can then be used as a way to, to validate, are you doing just merely greenwashing, or do you actually have, the impact to back up what you're doing? And I think as you do it over a period of time, it builds up, and it becomes part and parcel of your identity and your reputation in the marketplace.
Yeah,
Thanks,
absolutely.
Kat.
Okay, thank you. Right, Bernard G has been waiting very patiently. So I want to go to his question very quickly, which is a little bit doom and gloom, Bernard. So here we're talking about impact sourcing, and I think your question basically says, is there going to be an outsourcing industry, let alone an impact sourcing industry, with the advent of AI like ChatGPT? So what's everyone's views on that? Is ChatGPT going to take us all out?
I think the interesting thing is not, I mean, that's a very broad question. I think if we look at sort of AI, machine learning, it's actually been an opportunity for the impact sourcing part of the BPO industry. Because if you look at a lot of impact sources are doing things like image annotation to help train AI. Obviously, the world is going to continue to change, and there's going to be challenges that we have to face. And I think that it's, the impact sourcing movement, just like the rest of the BPO industry, will have to make sure it continues to upskill its workers and engage with these opportunities rather than suffer as a result of them. Would be my take, Kerry.
Thank you.
My take on this one. Oh, go ahead, please.
Very quickly, sort of like a sentence.
No, I would say that, AI makes people to be better at their jobs. So it's more like supercharging than replacing. So obviously the human element remains an integral component of that entire experience. Thanks.
Thanks.
I would say that GPT-3 and GPT chat, OpenAI, all tools, quite intriguing, but quite rudimentary today. Very exciting because of the humanistic, passionate responses you get, right? That's really, creates a lot of intrigue. You probably saw New York Times, somebody did something, the front page Sunday, a very ominous, write-up that Chat GPT did. But I think we're quite a long ways away from that. As a colleague said, AI and RPA have been in this game. They are expected. It is no longer a people game. You can't just throw people at the problem. Enabling technologies are part of the stew. And I think the next element that you're going to see as these tools develop will be responsible AI. That's going to be, your next element to ESG. Maybe not quite in my career or anybody here, but down the road, responsible AI is going to be a thing. Absolutely.
Yes. And if you allow me, the pandemic taught us that all RPAs, all those automated tools are magnificent, are great, but human touch is irreplaceable 100%. And there is always going to be an opportunity for the right people, for the right talent, in the right corners of the planet. So I believe it's going to introduce changes, but it's not going to threaten it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be driving change, and absolutely we do need, as an industry, to be looking at the ethical use of AI. So we are actually over time, but because we're recording this as well, I just want to ask one final question of everybody. So there is a global task force underway that is really looking at building a future for impact sourcing, a network of impact sourcing, best practices around impact sourcing, and commonality around impact sourcing. So if anybody is interested in getting involved in that global think tank workforce, please do get in touch with myself or email admin@gsa-uk.com. We really are looking for experienced practitioners to help us develop that best practice. But we are also really, really keen to bring on board people that want to know how to start the journey so we can actually help them on their first steps. So regardless of your level of experience, we want you to be involved and to be working with us on this. But I want to ask each of my speakers as their final comment is, if there's a global workforce working on the best practice and standard for impact sourcing, what would you most like to see this global workforce achieve or focus on? So one of the things for me is commonality of language. So what really defines impact sourcing, and what are the measurements to actually say that really is proper impact sourcing, rather than giving jobs to cheaper labour, for example. So I want to make sure that we've got lifelong learning and opportunity within impact sourcing. So your final comments, each of you, would be great. And who's ready to go first? Put your hand up. If not, I'll have to pick on you.
I'd probably echo what you've just said, Kerry. Data disclosure, a commonality of reporting that also allows for enough flexibility to recognise all the different elements that can actually have a positive impact in this area.
Thanks, Matt. Otis,
Okay.
I can see you bursting to go.
All right, sure. I think what I think can help is to also providing that standard enabling tools and support that's required basically to help people to succeed. In other words, the people that are part and parcel of this impact sourcing program, you need to find a way of creating that ideal environment for them to really, produce at their best. Thanks.
Thank you, Otis. Andres?
Yeah, this is a very broad subject in essence, but I believe to concentrate in the essentials, focus on youth, focus on people who are vulnerable to economic and social conditions, and pick just a few items such as those to get the starting point, but also to have the ability, because this impact sourcing changes in essence from geography to geography, from continent to continent. So there are a few different interests that need to be addressed with a local view. So perhaps to create a standardized 5-6 subjects, but have the right people to focus it on the geographies to make it more impactful, in the end.
Thank you. And Dan, I think the final word will be to you.
Oh, thank you. I tried to, that's a stumper. I'm really trying to think about it from a buyer perspective for a second. And I have heard the GSA manifesto video. I've watched this thing more times than probably anybody if you check your counter there. And I believe it really at a very, very simple level. First step in my mind, I think the directory of services, who's in the game, where are they, is more important to me right now than it seems more important than the definition side of thing. I think the definition side is going to take care of itself, but I think there's a barrier to access of just knowing who's out there. What do they have as a specialty? How many people are they on standard technology? So my answer is really kind of simple. I'd like to see a service provider directory, because I think it's very hard for buyers to figure out, who's there. I think they're bought in to the concept. I think access to, that network is going to be important. I don't know if I answered the question, but that's what hit me in the head.
No, absolutely. It's something that the GSA has put forward in its service, in its manifesto, is to do a service provider sustainability maturity index, which obviously the S piece of ESG is so important for. So on that, thank you for your comment, Chihata, and that's a positive spin that actually AI is going to be beneficial for all the workers, impact workers around the world. So leaving on a positive note, I would like to say thank you very much to our speakers. So thank you, Otis, and really, really the best of luck with what you're doing with OmniContact. We really hope you do hit those figures for impact workers by 2030. Very ambitious. Matt and the rest of the ADEC team, thank you for sharing your story, and likewise Andreas, thank you for joining us so early from Colombia and telling us the TP story. And last but not least, Dan Lang, thank you for joining us from Sutherland, and so early in the morning for you too. We really do appreciate you sharing your stories, and let's drive this movement. This is the beginning of a lot of noise, but not just noise, a lot of transformation. So thank you all so much. Have great days. Thank you.
Thanks very much,
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.